each of you a copy to take with you at the conclusion of my statement. I have a few questions as well on behalf of Delfest and on behalf of some of the procedural protocols that are followed by the county. Delfest celebrated its 10th annual event in May 2017 and is looking forward to number 11 Memorial Day weekend 2018. In addition to the tens of millions of dollars the fans have poured into the local economy, the Delfest Foundation will have given away over $500,000 to local charities after distributing this year's proceeds. The McCurry family has shown that they have a personal interest in where this money goes. It's not just about writing a check every year. Every year, Del and his family visit charities, hear their stories, ask what they can do to help. They even donated their labor to a Habitat for Humanity house built in our community. Excuse me. Hundreds of locals volunteer every year at Delfest, make all of this possible. Plus, the Delfest Foundation Board is made up of locals that care about the community. All of these folks should be very proud of the good that they do in helping those in need in our community. The foundation has donated to quite a few charities, including the Union Rescue Mission, the Alleghany Health Rate, Associated Charities, Imagination Library, Family Junction, Habitat for Humanity, HRDC Teen Challenge, Hot Rod Association, Hot Stove League, Mission of Mercy, Tri-State Community School for the Arts, Metropolitan AME Church, Christ Lutheran Church, Frostburg Community Food Pantry, Georges Creek Men Association, Our Lady of Mountain Parish, LaVale Methodist Church, Mount Savage Community Food Pantry, Crescenttown Athletics, The League, A Children's Place, Legal Aid, Western Maryland Food Bank, Summer Lunchbox Program, Family Crisis Resource Center, James Place, CASA, the CASA, the Fiddle Competition that's held up in Frostburg, Presley Ridge, Resource for Independence, Queen City Football Foundation, Community Trust Foundation for Bridges to Opportunity, Hope Homes and City Reach, Friends Aware, Tri-Teen Challenge, and Habitat for Humanity. It's quite a few. The overall exposure Delfest has brought to Allegany County, like my peer, Mr. Ed DeWitt, so graciously and thoughtfully identified to you folks, it's immeasurable. The festival has literally put us back on the map in a time when so much around us is declining. With all of the recent negative news on the radio and in the newspaper, fears about losing Delfest appear to be very real and founded, even though you have stated multiple times on the contrary. Western Maryland and Allegany County cannot afford to see Delfest move elsewhere. With that being said, the organization and methodology of the county commissioners and administration has caused many folks concern. Specific issues related to how the county operates include just some procedural questions about how our county, and I'm a taxpayer, I live here in this county, I raised my family here, I work and I do all kinds of things in the community. I love this town, I love the city. In saying that, I ask these with all due respect. Since each of you are part-time commissioners, how do you prepare, or more specifically, who prepares you for major decisions? Is it just yourselves, or is there a quorum between the three of you, or is it up to each of you independently, or typically, how do you arrive at a decision? Is it on your own report, or?
The commissioners may be part-time, but our department heads are long-time, very qualified professionals. That's why Mr. Kale is head of Public Works. The fairgrounds comes under Public Works. He's one who takes care of all the negotiations. He'll come to commissioners one at a time. We can't all three be together unless it's a public meeting. He'll come to each commissioner if he's got a question, if he needs approval to go one way or the other, if he just needs a suggestion one way or the other. Then the professionals bring a recommendation, just like you watch time after time here today. They bring the recommendation to the commissioners, and then we vote it up or down.
And sometimes it's followed, sometimes it's not. But I would just say it depends on what the issue is. Obviously some are going to be some departments, others are going to be other departments. And it just kind of depends, because sometimes the staff members that aren't department heads are the ones that are the point people for that. You know, other times the county attorney will be there if we need that. Other times the county administrator will be involved too.
Okay. Thank you. Other than Dave Everly, who else serves in a senior advisory role to the county and to the commissioners? Can you name them specifically?
All department heads in Bill Rudd, yeah. Paul Carroll, Jeff Barclay, and any department head we have. Follow back on the last question. The 400 employees we got, I probably know personally 350 of them. So
That's
anytime
great.
we got an issue with anything, before, and I'll give you an example on this, and I've really stayed in the background on Delphos. I've only been out 2 years, the 5 I've been 7, been for 5. I go out and tour the place with Kevin. This year when I went out to dinner with Stan twice, he said, Creed, of all the years, I never see you here. I said, I'm here, but I'm here to make sure the toilets is working, you got adequate water, you got your internet up and running and stuff. I don't need to be out on the stage patting myself on the back, because I don't like people that do that. That annoys me. If someone's doing their job, they don't have to prove it. So the first time was like Kevin said, what we need is some new campsites. Need to expand. So immediately, back to work 2 years ago, sat down with Paul and said, okay, we need a piece of equipment to make some campsites out here for Delphos. Okay, that happened, that was done. This last year, I got a hold of Kevin, same thing, was out on the golf cart. What's your issue? What's the holdup? He said, well, Paul got the stage graveled up and stuff, but we need telehandler to help unload trucks and stuff. He said, I can get out in front of this, get them set up for Delphos long before they even get here. What do you need? Need a piece of equipment. It's me and Paul and actually Bruce Smith from maintenance, which does so much behind the scenes out there for Delphos. He's another unsung hero. We went to Frederick, we put out a bid for one, we bought one, had it delivered. Same way this year when Stan approached with the internet issue, I said, I've never even heard of this. Within 1 week of him approaching, it was fixed. So I guess there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that people don't see that, that just kind of amazes me that it got to the point that it got. And there was several comments, especially by me, it said, well, you guys pretty don't know there's an issue. I did know there was an issue, because I do speak with Stan, I do speak with Ronnie McCurry when he's in town and stuff. I just want to be here to help. What do you guys need? Both commissioners and our staff are the exact same way. So I was kind of knocked in the jaw when I heard that we're against them or trying to run them out, because I thought, well, we've spent in excess I can think of in the last 2 years, about $150,000 of our money to support a festival just in little stuff. That's just little stuff behind the scenes. So I don't want the crews of guys we keep out there, because remember, that's my background.
Well, I know that wireless, that was pretty expensive, I know that, yeah. But thank you for that. I mean, I've been to every single one.
Right.
Yeah,
It continues, year after year, it just gets better and better, you know, so thank you for
My
that.
age, he's one of the greatest guys I ever talked to in my life.
Hey, they're good old boys, man.
Really here at the
They're
county
really
level,
good people.
the staff and commissioners, more like family dealing with each other rather than a commissioner and staff member. 1 year, there was a heavy rainstorm out of Delphos. They had about 2 hours worth of music left to go, but it got so sloppy out there.
Yeah.
Kevin gave me a call and they said, I found a guy that can bring a large load of sawdust, but it's going to break our budget. I said, give him, bring it, so the concert goes on. Another year, Deep Canyon Rangers were ready to play. Rainstorm came up. It was going to take them beyond curfew. There again, Kevin called me and he said, hate to ask you to be the bad boy on this, but can we break curfew? I said, sure. We got thousands of people out here waiting to see Steve Martin perform.
Yeah.
Let them go. So, I mean, it's those things that, you know, every commissioner up there has done things like that that you never hear about. Just staff gives us a call, they need help on something, we'll take it, and if we take a smack on the back, okay, that's fine.
That's great.
And I would say there's not one night of the week that any of us aren't at some event somewhere representing all 3 commissioners. And I think that we do a pretty good job of knowing what areas of interest we have, what areas we're more focused on, and Bill's certainly been the point person on Delphos, and that's fine. He's done that job fine, but it's not that we're not interested. Bill's just filled that role. And there's other issues where me and Creed are more more interested and we're more involved. So that's kind of how we view it.
But at the heart of it, the county is the priority. Is that correct? I mean, that's the most important thing. So I think going forward from there, I thank you for answering those questions. Just have a few more. So whenever the county, I'm interested in, I was part of the push that, the Paleo Army that stood up against some local corruption that involved some unfortunate things that happened to some county personnel prior. We don't need to get into that, but I do have questions about how stuff like that is handled. Two specifically, maybe a follow-up. When there are complaints against key county personnel, such as the former economic director, who is in charge of investigating those matters?
Well, I don't want you to try to tie complaints to corruption if that's.
Well, I didn't say corruption in that question.
Well, I just want everyone to be clear. There's no one's accusing the former economic development director of corruption.
I didn't either.
All right.
So I can read the question once more if it would help clarify what I'm asking. So when there are complaints against key county personnel, such as the former economic director, or such as X, who is in charge of investigating those matters about county personnel complaints?
Well, I guess it depends on, number one, the seriousness of it, but ultimately it's up for us to review and make a decision of whether there needs to be a personnel change.
The commissioners? So is that something that would be...
That ultimately falls to the commissioners.
Would that be something that would be, you guys would meet together, or would it be something that we would arrive at an individual?
That would require a session of all three of us.
I guess it would depend on if it was something that was urgent enough, and I'm pretty sure law does this and allows this, where Bill could talk to each one of us individually if it was something that was pressing and had to be done right away and get a consensus.
Let me elaborate a little bit. When you say complaint, that could be everything from, the guy wasn't polite when I called him on the phone to
Sure.
There's some criminal action.
It's a vast.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
So if it's we have a whole ethics thing that the state law requires us to have. If somebody makes an ethical complaint, it's actually handled by my office investigator. There's an ethics commission. We're not talking about that here. You're talking about somebody's performance. Ultimately, every county employee, other than myself and my assistant, really work for Mr. Everly first and then for the commissioner. It would be his obligation to investigate or do whatever. If somebody's to be disciplined, we have a whole civil service, rules and regulations, grievance procedure. You can imagine, it's public employees, that's what it is. Sure. So it really depends upon the nature. When you say complain about somebody, obviously if it comes to a commissioner and there's some complaint about somebody's performance, my guess is the commissioners are going to discuss it. Personnel matters are almost always discussed in an executive session. The state law provides a certain level of confidentiality for employees that we can't breach. It would be discussed there. If he felt the need to refer it to Mr. Everly or somebody else for action, the commissioner did. That's what would happen. So that's a long answer to your question, but it also depends upon the nature.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And plus the statement that the former economic development director wasn't involved. Barb Buell was a contractual worker for the county, but she worked under the Department of Economic Development. So basically, that director said Barb is the point person. Go to her. She could go back to the director. And I know there's been statements made that Mr. Everly hasn't been as involved as what he should be. There again, he lets his department heads take care of this. And I'm quite sure everybody remembers the train car that was done last year for the McCourys for the 10th year anniversary. Yes. That was Dave's idea, totally, 100%. He designed the whole thing. It was his. He took us around. That's hardly somebody that's not involved or somebody that doesn't want to help keep Delfest here. And also at that time, that group of people standing around, they were given a proclamation. We proclaimed the McCory family citizens of Allegany County. So that doesn't hardly say we were trying to chase anybody out. This thing on the contract negotiations got way out of hand. A lot of misinformation out there. People not knowing what the negotiations are, and the county doesn't negotiate on a radio station or in a paper, whatever, or negotiations directly with with both Stan Strickland and Roy Carter out of California. So there again, emails going from Allegany County to Florida to California, and there was just some misinformation or misunderstanding. There was a no compete clause, which we had absolutely no problem. We originally said we wouldn't have any music that was bluegrass music or country music that would compete with this festival.
Right.
Stan wrote back and said, take out country music. He wanted it to be, what was the term he used? Roots music. I don't know if you know exactly what roots music is. I surely did. I looked it up on the internet, and basically the actual definition of roots music is any type of music that has spawned another genre of music. And the example they gave, country music gave birth to rockabilly music, which then gave birth to Elvis Presley style rock and roll, which then gave birth to Beatles style rock and roll. And it just kept going. After a while, you looked at it, and Stan has a vision for bringing additional festivals here, whether they're through his company or companies he's not even associated with. We looked just with Roots Music, it seemed like it would take all other festivals off the table. And then whenever I spoke with Stan in person, he was, oh no, that's not my definition of roots music. Roots music is just pure acoustic music. So there was just semantics, you know.
Well, it's a good example.
His other definition.
Yeah, it seems like there's miscommunication there, even that you took it upon yourself to look online, and then instead of engaging in a back and forth about what your definition is versus his definition. And I mean, I didn't write anything actually. I had an interview with the Times News. I apologize for some of the verbiage I used. I think it was maybe it was a little harsh, but at the heart of it, I've said it multiple times. I think I do business. I have customers that I deal with there all the time. I have to get on phone calls with them, and sometimes they're difficult. But
can I interrupt you a minute?
Yes, sir.
Let's straighten something out here. There's emails with most people have seen now. They're on the internet. Paul Cale and I, who were doing negotiations, asked to have conference calls with Stan Strickland and Ronnie McCurry many times. They've yet to take us up on the offer. For the very reasons you're talking about, the very reason Commissioner Valentine talked about, it is hard to negotiate by email. I've been doing this for 41 years. I've been negotiating a lot of stuff, both my private practice and here. This is the strangest negotiation I've ever had, because you can't get anybody to pick up the phone and talk to you. They'll talk to Commissioner Valentine, but they won't talk to me or Mr. Cale. We've resolved that issue. So just understand, there's two sides to every story, and one side is we didn't have communication with the other side, except in very limited 15-word emails.
I understand. It's a terrible way.
These are complicated issues, okay?
I don't think it's that complicated. Everyone just needs to get in a room and figure it out. That was going to be the end of my statement.
But that's my point. So, and I'm not knocking anybody else, but that's the way that I'm used to doing negotiations. To pick up the phone or sit in a room with somebody. We even offered to fly to wherever they wanted us to fly to at our expense to sit down with the McCurry's and Stan, and they didn't take us up on that. Now that's fine, but I'm just telling you, we've gone more than halfway to try to meet them. This is getting resolved because we put forward a proposal, okay, that Stan has got, I get emails back, he's taken it up with the family, they like it, they're gonna meet with it, their attorneys are drafting language, for the first time their lawyers are involved, they're gonna give us back the language that they proposed, we're supposed to have it by the beginning of next week. Hopefully I can then sit down with the 3 commissioners, go over the language, see if there's any more back and forth, and we can get this done. But talking on the radio and coming in here is not very productive. And I understand, I'm not knocking you guys. You're very supportive of the festival. You know my son. You know he's supportive of Delfest.
Sure.
And look, everybody here wants to see Delfest succeed. But the negotiating strategy from the other side has been bizarre at best. We hope we can get this done. I think everybody's productive. Everybody here is supportive. And that's just what we need to have happen.
I agree with a lot of that. I appreciate that.
One other thing everybody has to remember with the contract negotiations, in the past, it was very simple, because the only thing, if the county was saying, all right, we're gonna put down so many tons of gravel, we're gonna have the grass mowed, we're gonna supply water, sewer, that was basically it. What's happening with the festival now is it's growing, and Stan's got a vision to grow it a whole lot more. I like his vision on this. So the county's portion of it was no longer just what Public Works has done year after year. And in previous years, Paul and Roy Carter could sit down, they could have the new contract ready in an hour or two. It was just very simple. This year, there was a lot more elements brought into it. And some of it was just lack of communication because of the distances between, I know Paul, even in one of his emails, said, if you can give us a place where you're going to be on a certain date, we'll come and meet you wherever that's gonna be. Of course, it's sort of hard to catch up with Stan. It's
Sure.
hard to catch up with Roy Carter.
I understand, and it's good that you guys are reaching out and doing that and extending olive branches, and, you know, I think the other side should do the same. I mean, that's good business, you know. But to me, my perspective, my own personal perspective is that they're a customer to the county and that the customer's always right. That's just my perspective, because that's how I deal with the people that I work with in my line of work, but that's okay. Thank you very much for fielding my questions. I have one more for tonight before I go. Do you support a multi-year agreement, and are you willing to go on the record tonight to answer that?
I would like to see it be a 10 or 20-year contract.
I mean, that'd be great. Thank you.
Absolutely, that's what I sat down with lunch with Stan and it's right before Dell Festival was in May. And said, I'd like to see this be wrapped up by August 1st, a 5-year deal, because let's get this done. So,
Thank you.
Absolutely, and Craig, I know you know these, but the Dell Commission made some recommendations earlier this year, and one was they wanted a list of tourism and public works, what they did for Dell Fest. That's been provided. The Dell Commission can meet with the Dell organizers once a year. I'm sure that'll be moving forward. Number 3 was reserving half the amusement tax for fairgrounds. That's done. Pursuing opportunities for future festivals. Absolutely. We've said that we're going to give free rent first year of a second festival if they do a fall one. Number 5 was hiring Bart Buell as Dell Fest liaison. Specific duties and definitions need to be determined, and obviously that hasn't been decided yet. That there was a dollar figure put in place at $5,000 for Dell Fest. If that's all she would be doing, if she's going to have more duties, then we're going to have to work on that. Completed Dell Fest economic impact study. Happy to do it. Obviously, that's going to need both sides working together and putting that money in place.
Got a fire in Mount Savage, I'll see it, well, go ahead.